Hello and welcome everybody to Week 6, Day 1 of the LCS Challengers League. I'll be walking you through the action today. You can call me Kangas, or as he has now returned, Sir Buttkick.
He's back!
As I continue my battle with Twitter to get my account back. Oh, okay, I guess I've lost the ad. There we go, it's below me again. But the show's, of course, not just about that, even though I'll probably reference it a few times. We got Gabby!
Hi! My goodness, I missed the chaos of apparently what your handle situation is, but hello, yes.
Oh, you don't know the deets.
I don't know the deets. I'm out of the loop.
All right,
got fired
we'll
by
have a segment about that later. But for now, welcome to the stream. LCS caster LaTigris coming in to hang out with us for the day. And I think do we have you twice this weekend?
Yes.
Let's go. Awesome to have you on this show. I know that you've casted at this level back when it was known as Academy. But now it's Challengers League, so a few things have changed. Obviously, we'll be catching you up to speed. But first, we got to welcome on Joshi, who's also coming on to the cast.
Wow, that sounds so disappointing, Steve. Like, I thought we had something special. You know, you got to step on me yesterday, and I tried to stab your feet.
You know, without context, that sounds very different, but I'm not going to provide the context because it's definitely funnier. Yep. Joshi, we don't get a cast together until the last week. I looked at the schedule. I'm actually kind of sad. It's only one time in the entire split. But you know what? We'll
we did it the very first day.
I'm stealing Joshi from you, Kangas. So
I know. I'm very jealous, Gabby. I'm very jealous. It's okay. We get to play Warhammer on our off days together, so you'll never have that, Gabby. But let's catch Gabby up to speed a little bit, Joshi. Give me the TLDR. The big changes from Challengers League this year compared to Academy, what it was known in the past. I'm going to give you a 20-second SparkNotes version.
Academy used to have 10 teams, one representing each of the LCS counterparts. Now we've added 6 new provisional teams. These 6 new provisional teams can be LCS affiliated, but they don't have to be. And so these 6 teams adding to the league, we are now doing a single round robin. You play each other team in 2 games, and you will not play them again until the playoffs. However, the bottom 4 teams of these provisional teams during the playoffs will have to play in a relegation promotion tournament at the end of the split.
Relegations are back, Gabby. That's the biggest change. And that means that, like, spots are not secured. We have pressure for players to actually compete again.
I know. I love it because we still get that fusion of getting to see the players that we have been watching for quite some time into now an environment that encourages these teams to clash with one another, really try new things, but a little bit of that sweat that can start prickling on your forehead for some of these teams. And sometimes we need a little sweat.
The pressure makes the games much more exciting. Of course, that will become playoffs. But, Gabby, you're joining us from the LCS broadcast. We had an opportunity to crisscross paths a little bit because we also had some content air on LCS. And you know that since we showed it there, we got to show it again. So let's take a look at what we cooked up as a team for the LCS broadcast. I wonder what's on TV.
Their carries, like you're saying, are...
I was wondering when we saw the...
Hello, welcome into the LCS Challengers League. I'm Magical, joined in by the bald one himself.
Breaking news, it's booting time. Despite the woes of their LCS counterparts, Dignitas Challengers is good. Led by veterans Insanity and Diamond, seeing a return to form from Tomo. Young players Exu and Hoon had taken the Rift by storm. Speaking of storms, Cloud9 have tied them at first. For more on that, let's go to Mazel with the weapon.
It's raining cats and dogs!
Mazel, I can't hear you. How are Lost and Zazel doing?
Thunder and lightning! Thunder and lightning!
What's going on?
It's over, Rizzler. You have nowhere else to go.
Gamers, one last time.
Are you tired of your League of Legends games ending in 30 minutes with a Baron fight into a mid lane push? Well, get on down to NACL Real Backdoors! It's backdoors galore. Get yours before the storage floor has no more. Boom! 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 Sign up with the hashtag NACL on Twitter.com for 10 minutes off your next Real Backdoor order. If you want some more Real Backdoor action, make sure you go to twitch.tv/Challengers League, twitch.tv/PathToLCS, twitter.com/PathToLCS, youtube.com/PathToLCS. Wait, we don't have that one.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Moose Haters Garen International Travel Agency. Do you want to play Garen? All you need to take is Ghost, Phase Rush, and a second item Zeal, and you can play Garen wherever you want around the world.
Previously.
Oh, hey, Cubby.
Oh, hey, Rafa. You were in their meeting today.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Listen, I was busy with LCS because I'm a full-time caster. But how was your Academy story meeting?
Rafa, you know it's called Challengers League? Or at least you would know if you were there. Oh, come on. Besides, we added 6 more teams and have way more fun games, so you're missing out.
The most valuable prospects already got promoted.
Yeah, that's the point of the league. Promote the good players.
You mean like me?
Okay, you know what? Casting with flowers was better.
All teams should quake.
Call the Rizzler today.
What if there was nowhere to hide?
Oh,
I know this
sorry,
guy.
SkyTech. You're not getting away from this one.
What if there was nowhere to run?
For this side. Blaze is like, I can deal with them. I'm fine. I'm okay.
What if there was no will to fight?
Come on, guys. We could beat him if we work together.
The rest of C9 is on Baron, and now he's going to be solo killing again.
He's trying to get the best Hoon impression
get around
here.
it.
M&S 2 Nightmare on LCS. Don't miss On the Range featuring Mazel weeknights at 11.
There's nothing on. I'm just going to play some League. So, Gabby, we like to have fun with our content. I think you could tell. But I'm happy we got the M&S payoff, because Game 1 looked rough. But Game 2, M&S actually popped up and lived up to the expectation that we got it set for him as our broadcast.
Yes, I think everyone had extra wide goggles when they were looking at him coming into the LCS. Look at all those solo kills. Oh my gosh, he's insane. So you wanted to see some kind of victory come off of the weekend. Though the first match was hype for other reasons, but you know.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely been fascinating to watch that he's leading the Challengers League in solo kills and probably will continue to do so throughout the entire rest of the season because of how far ahead he is up against everybody else.
25 or 26?
26.
Last I saw was 26. And so now as he's moving into the LCS, he's continuing to live up to that. I feel as though we're still going to see a lot of success coming out from both teams of Cloud9, right? Both of them have been looking quite good.
Yeah, a shout out to LEC also for dropping the raid. Thank you for anybody tuning in right now. This is the Challengers League, where we're just talking about M&S's debut on LCS. He had a pop-off performance there. And again, Joshi, it's good for our narrative, because we were heavily pushing that this guy is good. Would look real bad for our league if he shows up and just gets completely bodied. But obviously, they were talking about nerves, things like that. But yeah, I mean, outside of just M&S coming up, we've had a lot of swaps around. Ayla's back in as well, which means Winsome's now back in the Challengers League. It's cool to see him here. Gabby, sorry that we're stealing him away from y'all on LCS, but we wanted Winsome back for ourselves, so we got the U.S. government to bring in Ayla real quick to accept that visa, because selfish reasons on our part, right, Joshi?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, we have to remember that how close the vote was last year for most valuable prospect between Busio and Ayla. It had to be broken by a tie from the production side of things, and now he's finally getting a chance to play with the most successful team currently in the LCS.
Yep. So with that said, let's catch up with the standings. Catch everybody joining us from the LEC, everybody who watches the show regularly, even if you're not aware of this. We have Cloud9 Challengers in top form, tied right now in game record with Dignitas Challengers, but they have more 2-0s than Dignitas to do, so that means that they are actually higher up in the standings because of that reason. So technically, they are actually in sole possession of first place.
Yeah, and there is an important bet riding on this as well. Destrux made a bet with me that if Cloud9 is first, then I have to shave my facial hair, whereas if Dignitas is first at the end, he has to do the same. So we'll see which of them actually shake out. We'll definitely be getting a little bit more into how the rest of the season will go. But Gabby, you kind of see there's some separation here. You have some top-level teams, you have some bottom-level teams, and you have a big chunk in the middle that are pretty close.
And whenever they're in that position with a few weeks to go, that middle section is often what gets a bit more spicy, because you start to see that solidification between the top half and the bottom half. But of course, seeing some of the most prominent names of seasons past still doing well, I always find it impressive that Cloud9, whether it's Academy or Challengers or whatever it may be, is always up in the top echelon of competition, but definitely some teams that I'll be keeping my eyes on that bottom half that we'll have on this broadcast today.
And of course, Wildcard's still up there. Shoutouts to Moose Hater. I know he's popular in the chat, so you got to throw that one in there. Let's take a look at the schedule coming up ahead of us today. This is, of course, one of two streams. If you don't already, pull up twitch.tv/path2lcs, where you can catch the other three matches going on. But right now, ahead of us, we got AOE versus CLG Challengers, and then Immortals Progressive Challengers versus CLG Faith. So I know it's the same logo, but it is Challengers for CLG, and then their provisional roster, Faith, for the second match. And then, of course, Team Liquid Honda first, their provisional team, versus Cloud9 Challengers. A lot of fun matches ahead of us here. Joshi, what's your number one to watch?
I mean, I definitely think that we're starting off the day pretty strong, right? AOE versus CLG Challengers are probably the closest two teams that we have in the standings that we have going on today. Yep. And it's a spot where CLG has been very hyped up by a lot of the other teammates, but is currently sitting barely above 500. This could be an opportunity for AOE to try and get themselves a better seed, make it less likely they actually get relegated.
Mm-hmm. That's, of course, a conversation we'll have when we introduce the teams later on, as well as the expectations from other teams and players about CLG Challengers. But AOE, Gabby, I actually want to get your thoughts on this one, because Gamsu's their top laner. Can you tell me how many finals for Proving Grounds in a row Gamsu's been in?
Ooh.
That's a trivia question. I thought we were avoiding
It's a trivia
this.
question. I know, but this was one that was kind of exciting. I don't know. I'm hoping that LCS casters might know this trivia question. I'm not sure, though.
So you're asking how many of the Proving Grounds?
Proving Grounds finals Gamsu has been in a row. And I'll give you a hint. He's been on 3 different rosters. So it was on 3 different rosters each time.
Yeah, it was...
Oh, I just...
yeah, you're all...
That's a pretty big hint there, Steve.
You know, maybe he had a duplicate roster somewhere in there.
But, you know, I'll say... Yep. You definitely... I'm bummed because I had it. And now no one will believe me that I had it. But I'll say he did play for 100 Thieves for some time, as well as Dignitas. And does have a title, I believe. 1 title and two losses, right? So 2
yes. Okay. You know what?
Boom!
You proved it. You got it. That's on me for having a ridiculous hit. Yeah. But yes, he subbed in for 100 Thieves next, or rather 100 Thieves Academy from the next team. Won it in summer, and then 100 Thieves, and then Dignitas last year. But we'll talk more about him because he's on a different roster this time around, not performing as well as maybe in past seasons. He's on AOE Gold, who is a team, Joshi, we expected this team coming into the split as like, okay, this is probably the best provisional team. Clearly, that has not played out based on the standings, but there is still exciting things to talk about here for this team and reasons that we might expect them to, improve going into a playoff scenario.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that we have when we start rolling some of their clips is the fact that we said that this team was built not to get relegated, right? And I was kind of expecting them to be somewhere on par with Cincinnati Fear, who's actually currently sitting at 5th, but these guys have been struggling. Now, a couple things have been looking quite good. One, Lynx and Skytech actually punching way above their weight in terms of going for all these 2v2s and finding a lot of these kills.
But the other thing, by the way.
This is Unforgiven and Destiny.
Yeah.
But the other thing we have to remember about AoE is that Gamsu has been experimenting a lot more with this carry style play when he's normally known for his tank play. And we all know Gamsu scales into playoffs. He plays so much better in brackets than he ever will in the regular season.
Gamsu in playoffs has just been a meme for the last couple of splits because, yeah, he will sometimes fizzle out in the regular season, but then always brings it up, pops off come playoff scenarios. And that's the scariest thing about the player. I want to talk, I guess, more about expectations and the pressure of a provisional team as we also look at their schedule going forward here, because strength of schedule going into playoffs will determine seeding. Now, Joshi, I know that you were creating these graphics. This is a Joshi GFX production. Everybody, shout out to Joshi.
Yo, multi-talented Joshi in the house.
Anybody who can guess what program I make these in will get like an extra 5 points.
I don't think
we'll give you extra channel points or somehow.
Ridiculous.
However, we do have to note that they do have some tough opponents coming up against them. They have both CLG teams, CLG Challengers and Faith, FlyFam, Evil Geniuses, and Dignitas. Right? FlyFam, probably not the toughest thing. CLG Faith, I think they can get a couple of wins there. But everybody else on this are kind of killers, right? CLG, Evil Geniuses, and Dignitas are all up currently, fighting to be in that top half, and Dignitas is currently tied for number 1.
I will say, Evil Genius and Challengers have been struggling as of late, though, and they still don't have King in for AD carry. I think that is one that I actually might favor AOE. That's my hot take going into it.
That's hot.
But let's take a look at their opponents today, because the first one on Week 6 is CLG Challengers. Now, Gabby, you talked at the top of the day. It's fun to see some returning names from back when you've been casting Academy. There's even some returning players that I'm sure you might recognize here.
It's fun, but also at the same time, when looking at it, and I know Copy feel this way, I am excited to see him still here, but at the same time, I know that he has hopes in being LCS, has been positioned to really be up at that caliber for a while. So it's that feeling of, oh yes, I want to keep seeing you succeeding. And then alongside some of these other names too, Jenkins, who has become such a staple and very much oppressive in that top lane, where some of these faces, when we see them together on a squad, are always going to take different shape than some of the rosters they have been on in the past. So I love seeing that development alongside these different playstyles.
It's definitely been fascinating to watch this team come together because, I mean, on paper, they had 4 members returning from last year, with Copy being the only change that they've made to their roster. And again, there's a lot of star power kind of coming into this squad, and to see them currently in the middle has been a bit surprising. But as we look towards the rest of their opponents for the rest of the split, we do have to note that that is Team Liquid first, not Team Liquid Challenger. So, you know, a bit of a slightly easier opponent, but it's still not the easiest road ahead of them. They have Cloud9, they have Beard, they have TSM, and Team Liquid first. Like, none of these guys are going to be pushovers for CLG.
And Joshi, quick note, you gotta add like a little number 1 after the Team Liquid logo there, just to signify first. You know, GFX feedback.
That's the place they're in, right?
Huh?
That's the place they're in?
No. That's the team names. TL first. They're not TL Faith like I called them for the first 3 weeks,
or
because
TL
all the provincial teams have an F title after their logo. That's beside the point. The expectations for this team were pretty high coming in, and also expectation from other players and teams. Like, they rate them very highly, and we actually have some testimonials from some other players about how strong they actually think CLG Challengers are.
Who do you feel like are the strongest or the strongest team in NACL right now?
Coming into it, and I'll still stand by this, I think individual players and their peaks, I think CLG has the potential to be the best.
We've scrimmed CLG a lot, actually. Pretty good scrim partners. I think they actually have a good team, but I think they're very good.
Gee, Steve, I wonder where that came from. If you're ever interested in finding out more, that comes from the Raising an A podcast done right here from the Casa de Castro with me, Cubby, and Rafa. We do it every Tuesday at 8 p.m. So if you want to get more content on NACL, we tend to have players as guests all the time. But with that, I mean, just seeing how they praise CLG so highly has been kind of interesting. They've been saying, almost everybody has been saying that CLG has like 80% plus win rates in scrims.
Yeah, which means that they have the stuff. They got the juice. They just got to bring it on the game day itself. And speaking of, their first opponent for their final 5 remaining is AOE right here, because Pick and Ban is ready. So I'm going to pass it over to the Tigers and Joshi to get us into game number 1.
Bye, Steve.
Ooh, all right, see you later, Kangas. It is time for game number 1 between AOE and CLG Challengers. I am excited to see how they fare against one another, especially considering what you were just talking about, Joshi. There's always the Scrim God team, right, that comes in, and it usually has a roster filled with some kind of veterancy, those that really know how to handle themselves in these type of environments. So looking at people like Jenkins, like Copy, but you want to see that convert in an explosive way, and how they're going to handle themselves against AOE, who definitely have a very unified way of taking on the game, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting to watch how AOE and CLG play up against each other, because, I mean, this is the first time that we'll see them actually play on stage, but AOE, they live and die by Winnie. He's the main shot caller, he's the main leader. Whenever you hear him talk, he's like, yeah, he'll take all the credit, but he'll also take all the blame when things aren't going well, and I think that's a sign of a good leader. On the other hand, CLG, they have Jenkins, who's probably their most vocal player in their games, but then behind the scenes, Kevy and Breezy in particular are really helpful in a lot of the reviews when I was actually sitting in on them.
Yeah, and I think where those voices come from can make a difference as well when you're looking at AOE and having the jungler specifically doing a lot of that shot calling versus a team like CLGC, where it kind of varies where that voice is coming from inside of game and outside of game. As far as what we're getting from the bans thus far, a bit of a focus over towards that bot side with some supports taken away from AOE, and then a lot of standard bans for CLGC with the early game impact of Elise and Maokai and a lot of the utility that Ashe offers. But yeah, I kind of want to see what AOE end up doing in terms of where they want to play through here, because there's so much bot lane focus, right, Joshi, in the way that these drafts are forming at the top of them.
Yeah, okay. Is this actually going to get locked in? Because, oh my gosh, we missed this out last week, but 13.3 is live. That means we do have the Annie coming through, and I love this early pick coming out from Annie for CLG. Sorry to completely ignore everything you were trying to set up, because it creates so much pressure. Copy is undeniably a stronger laner than Darkwings, and Darkwings now has to build something that can withstand the early pressure that Annie can put out, especially around level 6. And you can also just throw it down in the bottom lane. It's got a lot of range to play with. It has this big stun, and it's almost impossible to dive in Annie if they're actually managing their stuns effectively. And so I feel like as much as we were setting up AOE to have some of these really big plays, the fact that CLG instantly picked 2 massive crowd control characters is putting a big stop to a lot of what AOE was trying to do.
Yeah, I love seeing Annie come into the meta ever since those changes, because there is technically a bit of flexibility between mid and support depending on the roster that you're looking at, but that lockdown that you're talking about with the stun and cycling through that effectively. Kevy also getting the Vi, having played a couple games on the Vi thus far, but is definitely a pick that Winnie has been favoring. So also a denial of what Winnie is going to be able to do with some of those early ultimates on a pick that he's for sure been favoring. But Sejuani is always someone that you're going to be happy about getting if you're looking to set up the team and really offer that tank capability and endurance for the rest of the squad.
Yeah. So far, seeing what AOE have kind of put together, right, this is very much in line with what we were kind of expecting. Winnie's going to be on this playmaker, he's controlling a lot of the engagers, the bottom lane for Lynx and Skytech is building up something that can be lane dominant into almost anything, and it actually kind of pushes us Annie a little bit more towards the mid lane due to the fact that Annie is going to be getting outranged if they do choose to stay down here. And so, CLG, they lock in Ezreal, that actually says to me that Annie might be more likely to support again, because they're just like, yeah, Meech, good luck. Breeze is not going to be in your lane very much. He's going to go try and help out the rest of the map. And this is something that has slowly come back into the meta a little bit. And Meech was one of our better Ezreals in 2022.
Yeah, and has already warmed up on the pick thus far in 2023. So I like the direction that they're going with the draft to still be able to hide some of those cards and exactly where they want to flex. Because I think there are arguments for both, but you are wary of the lane that AOE has been developing, getting Lux locked in, which also offers lockdown and an additional level of harass and poke. Having to really work past that is something that you'll have to be very careful of when you are going towards something like an Annie in the squad, which is taking away some of the sustain or utility that you can offer in one of these slots.
For sure, and as we start training towards the top side of the map, we have to note that both sides have enough lockdown, enough opportunities to get things started. Now they have a lot of freedom to actually kind of build out what they're looking to do, and I'm looking for Jenkins in particular to have counterpick. He's one of these guys who has played some of the more unusual things, most notably the Warwick, but also things like the Kled have been on the menu for Jenkins. He's known for his Kennen, which he will bring out at the drop of a hat. He's played the Rumble this year as well. He's got a lot of cool things that he can bring to the table, whereas Gamsu, as they're trying to shift over to the carries and fewer tanks, it is definitely going to be a spot where Gamsu will need to try and stay up during the laning phase and not get suffocated out of the game.
Yeah, Gamsu very much favoring. I mean, everyone went through kind of that Cassante phase that you had to in the top lane, but still loving picks like the Gnar, but showing that breaking into also having those kind of dueling opportunities, depending on which direction he goes. But Sion getting locked in for CLG Challengers. So Jenkins taking on a beefy role.
Interesting. And we're seeing a missing ban coming out from CLG. That usually means that they just didn't lock anything in, so we will see what kind of effect that might have. I mean, thus far, this Jenkins Sion is not something he's particularly known for, but it does block out a lot of things that Gamsu really likes to play. But this is something that Cubby and I have been asking for as a response to the Sion. It is so good into this specific matchup, and the thing is, you don't even need to use the Feast to kill somebody. One of the big things that you can do, if you just do 1,500 true damage to a Sion, suddenly that Sion's not a tank you have to worry about anymore.
This is why I love coming to this league, because I feel like these are the kind of matchups that people talk about, but it can sometimes take a while before you really get to see them in the LCS or beyond. But players here are willing to take those and really lean into a lot of these very specific tendencies. So having Cho'Gath come into the mix for AOE, getting the Yone lock in for Darkwings for some of that dueling along mid lane, I think that we are making for a very interesting game here, Joshi.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very different. And now we have to commit the ante to one place or another, right? Is it going to go in the mid lane? Is it going to go into the bottom lane? Who's going to actually be playing this one? CLG are going to decide that it will be going towards the support. It's going to be very difficult for Ezreal Annie to kind of stand up to the Caitlyn Lux, and so we will probably be expecting Breezy to be moving out of the lane quite a bit. But look at how much crowd control they have in the top side, Gabby. This is a top side built to brawl, and CLG is definitely a team that tends to live or die based on how effectively Jenkins and Copy can go for flanks, how effectively they both engage at the same time, and that's one of the things where we will be seeing how well they can build up advantages early on.
So with that considered, if you are looking at the way that CLG tend to play and really leaning into how those solo laners can continue to affect other parts of the map, how do you think this draft compares to what AOE brought to the table? How would you set up their opposing win conditions?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that we're looking at here is that AoE really need to play through the bottom side of the map, right? Sion gets really effectively neutralized by Cho'Gath, but it's oftentimes difficult for Cho'Gath to kind of win, especially with a Vi. Lynx and Skytech have been able to find 2v2 solo kills against teams like Unforgiven and Destiny, who, I mean, let's be real, Unforgiven and Destiny are one of our best laning bottom lanes in the entire league. Lynx and Skytech now have one of the best 2v2s in the entire game. They're going up against a much shorter range, and going up against a team where Breezy is being forced to take heal in order to just survive it. This is where AoE really needs to find some early advantages. We can expect Winnie to try and go for some early ganks there.
Because, yep, that heal, like you just mentioned, being brought to the table, offset against that Ignite for AoE here in the bot lane. And I do want to see where these junglers decide to bring their early attention. As you can see them with that traditional top side positioning, means they can bring that pressure down bot ways if they desire.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it called, CLG calls it this, CLG calls it the Santorin path. Do you know what that is, Gabby?
Ah, the Santorin path. Yeah, give it to me.
Yeah, you do all of your bottom side camps. It's like red Raptors, Krugs, and then you gank bottom lane, right? And that's something that we've been seeing Winnie be a big fan of. Heavy tends to farm a little bit more in the first couple of minutes, but that's something where I would not be surprised if Winnie did something like that. Instead, going to be going for more traditional, this is probably going to be a blue-red Krugs into the bottom lane in order to make sure you have that level 3, because, again, you need to make sure that Meech and Breezy don't get a play.
Meech and Breezy trying to see what they can do over in that bot lane. But here we are into the game, getting things going. I saw that chat was really leaning over towards AoE for this one as well. Not as one-sided as I've seen some of the votes go thus far, but a bit of favoring over towards this blue side. And
wow. Sorry, you see how many auto attacks Breezy just got off there that were not responded to?
Just the way that Meech and Breezy were able to get that poke out. The thing is, you have that double range bot lane matchup, right? Yeah. So both of them have a similar idea in some of the ways they want to approach this. So it feels like it exacerbates the issue when one gets a clear, heavier hit on the opposition, which is what CLG was just able to do on this bot side.
Yeah, it is worth noting, though, that the CLG all-in is stifled quite a bit by the fact that they have chosen not to pick up an Ignite for either Breezy or Meech, so they won't have the same kind of all-in potential going up against Lynx and Skytech, but they will be a little bit harder to push out. And look at this, Winnie, the blue, Wolves, red, now going into invade. This is actually something that Winnie can do pretty proactively, and Lynx and Skytech, because they've already pushed up, can come up and help almost immediately if they choose to.
Kevi currently in the vicinity on those Wolves, and you see the clustering from those mid laners if they need to make that rotation, but Winnie feels pretty confident in attempting to get this, but CLG definitely know that something's up.
Yeah, Kevi jumps over the wall and is like, huh, where did my blue buff go? And now Winnie doesn't realize that he's going to be standing on a ward, but does hit the plant. So they will both know where each other are. They will go ahead and back away at the same time. But I want to turn our attention a little bit towards the top lane, right? Because we were saying that Jenkins was probably going to be getting a counter pick, and he's a very suffocating laner to play against. But Gabby, the reason why this lane is so hard to play is Sion doesn't get to press Q ever. Right, you have the Rupture, you have the Scream. Every single time Jenkins presses it, he uses up the mana, but Gamsu just puts it back on cooldown, and because Gamsu has better mana sustain every time he kills a minion, it's really hard for Jenkins to do anything. But Kevi spots Winnie out again.
A little bit of action over towards mid side. A nice route on the bot side allows AOE to dish some of this back, and that's where that Ignite comes into play. Cannot get the kill just yet on Breezy, who had to use the heal, but my oh my was at a razor's edge.
Yeah, that was really close, and I'm a little bit surprised that Breezy actually choosing to stick around as Winnie goes for yet another invade.
Junglers just meeting on one another again, and Coffee here to get the chains connected when he does have that escape potential, and Darkwing's here over the wall with the Soul Unbound if needed, but just to get a little bit of poke for that safe exit for Winnie.
Yeah, honestly, pretty impressed with the way that AOE is playing this early game, right? They're kind of winning across the board, and this is not something we have necessarily known AOE for. Gamsu, generally not thought of as a stronger laner than Jenkins. Darkwing's definitely not thought of as a stronger laner than Copy, and so CLG falling a little bit behind early on in this game does create more problems for them than I think we were necessarily expecting, and so as we kind of pay attention to the rest of it, we have to go into it knowing that Jenkins is not going to be as strong of a front line as we were kind of looking at, Gabby.
Yeah, exactly. When I think it's also great the way that you're pointing out some of the playstyle differentials between these, because where Copy is a very press forward, let me try and get that harass down, Darkwings isn't always as present in that way, so these advantages extending for AoE is a good look for them to be able to suppress Jenkins in the top lane, to be able to keep Copy locked down and not give him anything really at this point in time, keeping that farm even, and the gold lead very stable.
Yeah. To build onto that a little bit more, right? Like, Copy is a player that you're recognizing as somebody that we've been pushing to have an opportunity to play at the next level. Unfortunately, getting a little bit supplanted personally by Diplex and Amenis this year. Not to say that they've been struggling, but just as we were looking at Gamsu, you gonna feast him? Not quite. But on the other hand, Darkwings was a player that was let go from Dignitas Academy last year, and had to come back from the amateur side of things. And now he's coming back. He's actually taking one of our better mid laners in a situation where we were criticizing Darkwings laning earlier this year.
Darkwings is always one of those, you ever think back to some of your early cast and everyone that was kind of there in the moment just really sticks out. So I remember doing some Red Bull solo queue events that Darkwings was competing in back in the day. So I've had a really fun time watching his transition from then just kind of doing these individual one-offs as he and the rest of the squad go and take down this dragon, to now consistently playing for some time within the league, then taking some time away, and then really coming through in a powerful fashion for the rest of the squad. And I think that you're looking for him to achieve that stability, but keep pushing the envelope and continuing to show that he can develop as a player.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely a player that we mostly know for his mage play. So even seeing this Yone a little bit is inspiring of potential opportunities for them to continue improving. However, at the same time, I mean, we can't turn away from it. AoE are still continuing to maintain a bit of an advantage, and we do have to note that the time when this is most likely to shift is as the game is really only about on 1.5, 2 items, just because that's when Ezreal wakes up, that's when Sylas becomes really, really strong, that's when Vi hits massive power spikes, and at the same time, Yone on one item is kind of uninspiring, Caitlyn on one item is really kind of bad, so that's where we're going to be looking for CLG to kind of make their plays. We should be looking for that around the next dragon, and maybe the third dragon to spawn as well.
Exactly. I mean, Vi, such a great call out for somebody that you're looking for that ultimate. In fact, it feels like you can feel your own judgy meter going up the longer Vi goes without trying to throw that ultimate somewhere as soon as 6 is hit. So we'll be keeping that eye on Kevi to see where that pressure is allotted. But for now, focusing up on this bot lane, we've seen so much of the rotation from Breezy, just throwing down exactly what you expect from Annie, you know, throw down to disintegrate and more. But now AoE having this wave pushed up and wanting to make sure that they keep a farm advantage. But over on the top side, Winnie in a bit of danger as Kempi is in pursuit, but Darkwings has come through. The stun is good. Mid laner over the wall means the first blood to CLGC. Jenkins really making the play here.
Yeah, Jenkins, we were setting him up. He is one of the more vocal members here for CLG, actually finding that opportunity to find the ult. They find out Winnie finally, and that's one of the things that we have to look at, right? When you have your shot caller starting to get put behind a little bit, that's when it becomes really dangerous. But trap combo.
Oh, look at the lock and the burn. Lynx kill credit onto Breezy. The way they had been pressuring all this time and the bind being rewarded.
Yeah, and so AOE, they still maintain a small advantage, trading kills on the other side of the map. I mean, we said that, right? Lynx and Skytech have been really good laners throughout this year thus far, putting Meech and Breeze in an uncomfortable position. And this Annie, I was pretty excited about, hasn't really had a whole lot to do just quite yet, because Lynx and Skytech have kept it underneath turret this entire game.
And the response from them with that exact trade, okay, our jungler has died over on top side. Okay, yeah, get that block for the ace in the hole, not to connect and finish off Meech here. But you do have to always be forward thinking in the way you respond to something that could be a pure disadvantage. Our jungler just died, but guess what? Their jungler was also over there, so we got to make that play.
Yeah. And this is one of those things where you have to remember, right, you were talking about itching for that first ult. Heavy goes for it. Jenkins is right on board, and they just have enough crowd control to lock down winning it. You know, I don't think Dark Wings was intending to go into the other side of the wall, but it is one of those spots where CLG, there wasn't a whole lot left there for them to do. And here, I mean, we were kind of waiting for this to happen. At least I was. There is going to be a binding landing at some point, right? Somebody is going to get blown up, and when you don't have any cleanse, you're just going to be dead to this combination. Lynx and Skytech do it all at once, give it over to the right person. They almost pick up Meech on the backside as well.
And once that binding hits, I feel like you can feel your heart sink a bit. You're like, it's pretty early. I am very squishy, and I am now dead. And
I am dead.
Yep. Maybe if a little bit of the damage follow-up had landed, there could have been a way to try and return slightly, but in the end, it's difficult to land in those moments. You can already see, so Copy being on this Sylas, when you are that Sylas, you're looking for those opportunities to affect the rest of the map, was sought out and saw that there was vision that really gave away that Copy was making that rotation, but here he is now collapsing with Kevi, so Dark Wings getting that intel from the rest of the team as well. But yeah, this is what you're looking at. The junglers and the mid laners, how are they going to make these roams happen? How are they going to apply pressure elsewhere?
Yeah, and that's something that I think Kevi has actually done a lot better this year than we were seeing Kevi in 2022, right? When Kevi first came here, I was very critical because of the amount of time he would spend not actually going for a lot of these plays, or rather not farming. He was constantly sitting in bushes for minutes at a time in order to try and make a lot of plays. And you kind of see right now he's a little bit unsure of what to do, but we see ults committed topside.
Yeah, starting to make the way up. A little bit of a knock up from Jenkins onto Gamsu, but Gamsu in the tower vicinity. Got multiple members of AOE here locking down in a bound. Breezy into the grave again. A little bit of an ultimate thrown all the way to see if Dark Wings can finish off onto Meech. Looking for another slap. Gets it. AOE coming out on top after that dive.
CLG trying to respond in the mid lane, giving over a bunch of plays. This could be an entire turret between these two champions, but that is a lot of gold going over to Lynx and Skytech. That is probably going to be our best game thus far, and as they piece out, they give 4 plates over to Copy and Kevi combined, but still so much money being given over, and Gamsu has a feast.
Looking for it, looking for the angle.
Flashy?
Knock up, flash for it. Get some
Gamsu,
no! No, the sad bee is here in full effect. The feelings felt and the stinger is strong.
That's a bit of a whoopsie daisy right there, Gabby.
A little bit of a whoopsie daisy, a little bit. But hey, AOE did get their second dragon on the opposite side, so
true.
We can just, you know, forget about that.
Anyway,
but,
so AOE, they're still ahead. This is still really good for them going up against CLG, who again, so many players have been saying should be considered one of the top teams in the league, but this is kind of what we've been seeing. It feels like they're more timid when they actually come to the stage games than it is in a lot of their scrim games. So they just kind of go crazy in a lot of those. And so now as we're starting to get towards those first items actually being completed, we see Kevi has the Black Cleaver. You have Roa and Sunfire being completed as well. This is when we can start to see CLG wake up a little bit, move Breezy around the map a little bit more in order to go for those guaranteed stuns to make these plays happen.
because we are approaching the 14-minute mark soon, so get into that territory where plates will no longer be available. Still some time before the next major objectives, as a lot of those were just exhausted. So because of that, CLG are granted the opportunity to kind of shore up that gold lead that is now about 1K, but something that they can definitely control and get themselves online with later.
All right, so this is Kevy falling back into one of his habits that I was very critical of last year, right? A little bit less critical this year because your camps don't mean as much, but look how long he's actually been sitting here, and oh,
switcheroo!
The timing? That's wild.
Hey, trade places with me, jungler. I am in this bush, and you go that way.
You go that way.
The timing of that was pretty funny, but
look at how long he spent there when he has 4 camps still up. His blue buff's also spawning, and there's a big set of 1v1s.
Yep, Winnie is getting the lockdown onto one, and the ultimate to attempt to turn it back and be out of it and way downtown. Jenkins is here. Darkwing's looking for the solace of his turret and has Winnie on the rotation, who wants to try and dish this back. Gets a charge onto Jenkins, but Coffee gets enough damage in response, so no lives lost, but some summoners blown.
Wow, a lot of nothing there, right? People going in back and forth, and I'm a little bit surprised. I'm a little bit more used to seeing that. Oh, no.
Oh, Meech! He's away, but the play is here. Ultimate from Skytech to finish it off, and a little bit of a misplacement here with no turret.
Now, Gabby, I know this happens from time to time in LCS, but this actually has been happening way more in the Challengers League than it has in the LCS, right? The number of times people will sit in those bushes, or we even saw Prisma like sit in the lane bush between the turrets in order to wait for people to come by. Feels like people would start getting like a bit more used to that at this point, but Meech falls prey to it. The cleanse is not enough, and AOE, I mean, they're funneling more and more money at this point into Lynx and Skytech. We said 1-item Caitlyn, not very exciting. 2-item Caitlyn, starting to get talking. 3-item Caitlyn, that's going to be a problem for CLG, and we are rapidly approaching that point.
Caitlyn could be a scary lady. That gun is powerful. And yes, exactly as you're saying, Joshi, sometimes those plays that we have seen frequented enough are getting called out a bit. But because of the current map state and getting that first turret down on the bot side, we're starting to see some of that unlocking from the lanes. Copy currently on that bot side to start clearing this wave with Unleashed Teleport available. Kevy still wants to try and find angles to affect the rest of the map, but we are past that stage slightly. So now, because of AoE's ability to cluster on top, they can go ahead and secure themselves an objective.
Yeah, I mean, AoE doing a fantastic job just being faster to all of these plays. And one of the things we always love to talk about, it's about a minute before the next dragon setup. We got to look at who is going to be better when they actually get there. Teamfight timer. AoE is definitely going to be a little bit stronger if they can set things up and use those Caitlyn traps, but CLG, they're committing for this turret.
Yeah, CLG were trying to dish the damage because they knew the turret was low to see if they can chunk them down enough to follow up, but in return, AoE do have the response despite being a lot of melees. They got their bot lane here for the poke, and Darkwing's speedy enough to join the charge forward, and with a wave for them, AoE want to set this up before that Drake comes up in 45 seconds. Whoever can really gain control of this mid lane has an advantage for that major objective, and Shelly getting this charge means that the turret falling in the favor of AoE as they continue their pursuits.
There's a lot of money that's not spent on either side that will not be spent for this upcoming dragon, and interestingly, Ape going towards the top side, he's like, yeah, they're going to get this charge. That is okay. We need to make sure we are back on the map in time, and with the teleport still available for Copy, you will see that CLG, they will have spent all of their money for this upcoming fight on at least their solo laners, so that will make them a little bit stronger in that regard. And as people start coming back towards this dragon, look at how the setup actually comes in from CLG. They're trying to make sure that they can break open this massive choke point before AoE can get trap set up.
Yeah, but thus far, AoE coming to the river first means that they've had the ward advantage, some of it getting swept out by CLG now. But the dragon is up.
Yeah. This is really good from CLG. Like, that was fantastic movement.
That was they were waiting. AoE really wanted them to come through that narrow corridor to try and get them locked. And you can see CLG surrounding on the opposite side of this pit as well with Copy. They want to get the positioning around AoE so they don't have any entry into this pit, with Winnie and the front line trying to secure the riverside. But Copy getting sought out, still holding strong to try and contest here, but we're still looking at it. Everyone's making that face. A knock up from a couple of short-range Scion ultimate to get this started. And Lynx fairly chunked down in this moment, has to play carefully from here on out, and Copy still facing off against Dark Wings on the opposite side. Dragon brought down to 50% HP. Skytech offering as much support as possible to this front line with the shielding. Is still Winnie looking for it, seeing if he can make the play along the rest of the squad, but it would be the hero play as everyone else has retreated.
Cool. Okay, I was going to be so sad if CLG didn't get that dragon. They did such a good job setting up, and now, I mean, AOE, they spent a lot of time. What does Breezy want to do as Flash?
Looking for something, and I mean, moments like that are really fun to watch in the sense it really was positioning and CLG moving as a unit, because AOE were doing everything that they could, Joshi, to try and get an opportunity to pick someone off before CLG made that rotation in.
I feel that was very typical of both teams for the first part of it and a little bit atypical of them from the second part, right? CLG has been very good at moving around, right? The whole sequence with both turrets where they set up, they back away, and then they break the line that AOE were trying to set up was really good. That's something that we're used to seeing from these more experienced teams like CLG, but their unwillingness to actually go for the big fight afterwards was a little bit surprising. Whereas for AOE, they're known for just going for some of the big fights. They got a little bit outplayed at the beginning, but they ended up getting pushed out, and then they played the patient way, right? They ended up getting 2-3 turrets off of that sequence in exchange for 1 turret and the dragon. Even though it felt like CLG was playing the first part so well, AOE actually just out-macroed them on the entire map, and they will get the top lane turret as soon as anybody goes up towards the top side.
Exactly right. Nearly a 3k gold lead for AOE, and when you break up the dragons in that way, that means some time before anyone is really threatening Soul as we approach 20 minutes into the game now. And that top turret, you said it, just a little bit of a sneeze from falling, which is why Dark Wings continues to make that rotation towards that top side to finish it off.
Yeah, also, shout out to our observers. We'll get their IDs for you fairly shortly, but look at the difference right here between Lynx and Meech. This Caitlyn is so strong, and Lynx, I think the last time I cast one of these games, he was playing Callista. He ended up having like 12 kills or something absolutely ridiculous on it last time. He doesn't have the kills for it this time, but he is so strong. And CLG, they feel pressure to just try and make things happen at this point because they haven't had anything really go their way on the map. They're trying to find this flank.
And their hope is to get onto Lynx as soon as they possibly can. Kevy in the center of it all. Quite a blast from the Lux ultimate, though, means he is short on life, and the teleport coming in from AOE. Dark Wings going for the kill. Manages to set that up for Lynx to get it onto Kevy, and Jenkins is trying to retreat with the rest of the squad, but AOE controlling this by killing the jungler off right at the start. It was looking vulnerable for their backline for a moment, but they were ready for the play with a TP. Starting up the Baron now, controls galore. Breezy and Jenkins want the angle, but Dark Wings is zoning them off. Look at that damage onto Breezy. Annie, so squishy at this point in time. A root in return for Jenkins' attempt, and Copy going into the center, manages to get the kill onto Skytech, and AOE turning it back. They take the mid laner, they take down Breezy. Jenkins now in passive mode. Double kill for Gamsu, and AOE really slittering out of this one.
Wow, what a crazy fight back and forth, and it just feels like AOE, they've played this much more tempered style this game, and it's doing them so well, right? They're just winning so many of these engagements by trying to play it a little bit more slowly. Even in this one, because Lynx is not under pressure this entire fight, just gets a free hit for a huge percentage of it. And unfortunate, Jenkins not able to stay in range with all the chaos that was going on, but immediately afterwards, AOE, they hit this Baron with the immediate intention of turning. They have no intention of going for the, not even the smite, but the feast 50-50, because Copy has the Cho'Gath ultimate. They don't want to take that. Instead, they want to force their opponents to fight, and even though Lynx gets caught up a little bit, he very rapidly finds a new pocket with which they are free to hit. They are able to turn onto Copy, who dives too deep, and AOE will just slowly rip them apart. And Gabby, the biggest part isn't even that they get these kills, it's the fact that winning this fight buys them another 4 or 5 minutes of farming, 4 or 5 minutes of just getting gold onto Dark Wings, onto Lynx, who are going to be impossible to deal with as soon as they hit their third item.
Getting that itemization up, getting stronger and stronger, and I think that also exemplified the difficulty that CLGC is going to face right now when you're trying to get Lynx. But guess what? There's a Sejuani and all these other melee units that are going to surround. Lynx and just make sure it stays as safe as possible. But CLG looking for the angle if they can. AOE venturing on forward. Gamsu, the receiving end of that knockup, but they're trying to dish it back. Copy throwing out the Lux ultimate. And Lynx so low. The final hit coming from Ezreal. Oh no, the damage gone, but it's traded back 1 for 1. Meech has to flash over the wall to get out of it. And Jenkins, a tank is only tanky for so long. Meech in out of the way when he's still in pursuit. Can't find it. So we get another trade of a life here. It's getting scrappy, Joshi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to call it right now. That fight was probably CLG's last chance to have a real opportunity back into this game, Gabby. They just lost it. They give over a Mountain Dragon, and importantly, after this, Lynx Darkwing's going to be super, super close to their third item. And there's just not enough damage left on the CLG roster to actually take any further fights. We see this coming through, and even though CLG do a fantastic job coming in from 3 different angles in order to dogpile onto the AD carry, he survives for long enough, and as you called out, Gabby, all these melee champions stacked on top of each other. Darkwings moves them all together. They're getting hit by tons of AoE, and even though they're fairly tanky, you're not tanky enough to deal with all of the rest of the damage coming through. CLG get routed, give over the dragon, and I mean, the small price to pay for Lynx, AoE will pay that every time.
We've seen this a lot with Scions, where it's a symptom of all tanks, but being that he's come back into the meta in a lot of ways, where early on, so hard to chunk through that. But those items coming through with that build and just the gold that AoE have in their pockets, able to take care of any of the HP that stands in their way, and Lynx just enough damage at the start. AoE making sure that they keep control of this game, and now on the Baron once more. There's a little bit of presence from CLG, even trying to garner some more of that intel with the True Shot Barrage. But does CLG try to contest in any way here? You know the jungler's coming around. Kevy's on the opposite side. But in the end, AOE secure it. They're wearing the purple, and they're turning it around onto Breezy. Oh, no.
I have to imagine the comms from CLG have just, like, gone to crap, man. Like, that was so confused. You have Copy down in the bottom side. You have people, like, kind of half participating in the contest, whereas Meech is like farming the mid lane, going for the blue buff. It looks like CLG have moved on from this game, and that's something where I feel like is a big testament to how effectively AoE have played this. I'll kind of say it right now, I feel like the Cho'Gath pick almost single-handedly won AoE this game. Prevented Gamsu from falling behind in Jenkins because of how strong that matchup is. It is this massive tank that can play with both Sejuani and the Yone, and CLG have just never really had an answer in this game. They haven't been able to go for a whole lot of plays, and this is, they're trying to find something.
See if they have some more coordination. This time, Copy going into stasis and Vi ulting way downtown onto Lynx once more, but before that kill can be achieved, Copy is eliminated. Vi has to circle through the jungle to rejoin the rest of the team that is funneling back into their base, and AoE keeping up the pressure to ensure they get this inhibitor. Just look at the way that Gamsu is even telling Kevy, you can't come to the rest of the team. They're just going to fight on their own so that they can secure this objective for themselves.
Yeah, AoE have been so much more disciplined in the way that they're trying to take these fights, right? That was super confused from CLG. You saw Kevy going for the AD carry where everybody else is fighting in this big brawl. And that's the way that AoE love to play. AoE love having this single idea of how they're all going to be moving together. It's been fantastic stuff from AoE. Now the only thing they have to do is they can back out, spend all their money, and there's only one lane of pressure that they have to play towards for the rest of the game. They'll still have about 30 seconds of Baron by the time they reach the second turret.
Making a lot of use of that Baron, that's for sure. With the pressure they have allotted thus far. And yeah, looking at the way that fight happened, you mentioned the separation of Kevy from the rest of the team. And I think that's one of the difficulties when you're looking at something like that ultimate and cease and desist is you get so locked on to getting that target. But then if the follow-up isn't there and the burst doesn't happen, then guess what? Your mid laner ends up dying before you fully are able to finish off this ADC. And the fight goes in the favor of AoE, who got 2 inhibitors off of that. The wave was evenly crashed over in bot side, so there was no hope of trying to rotate for the quick one there because of the wave state, but still now getting the opportunity to set up with ample time, over a minute until this next dragon comes. That's going to be sole point for AoE, and CLG definitely feel like they're struggling to find that decision holistically of whether they want to contest in certain areas or just let go.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly want to start looking at game 2 a little bit too, right? Because I don't think CLG have the damage necessary to close out and even find a good fight from this position. Look how quickly this turret is actually falling. but we'll get to that as the game actually starting to end. AOE going to be taking the 3rd inhibitor. The Baron has run out, Gabby, but I mean, CLG, they've tried to go for these different flanks. They haven't gone the way that they needed them to, and without the damage, it's mostly on Meech, right? If Meech can pop off and have a really good fight and hit the back one, maybe they can play, but you're seeing right now, he's kind of tickling the big monster.
And those 2 parts are critical, and the way Winnie and Gamsu look at how they put their bodies between the rest of the team. Copy already having to blow that stopwatch, and they get the multiple knockups galore from this Cho'Gath, and Vi separated again. Copy so low. Lynx finishing off with an ace in the hole, and now with Kevi in no position to get back to the team, this time zoned off by Winnie. The remainder of AOE collapsing upon this base. You have the double supers coming down these lanes too, and somewhere in sight, the junglers are just doing their own thing. But there goes one of the turrets and another, an AOE putting a little bit of a bow on the wrapping paper of this game with some extra kills for themselves against CLG, but an AOE victory at that.
Yeah, I mean, we have to praise AOE for how well they actually piloted this game. They just controlled it from minute 1. They controlled it from the draft. It never felt like they were in any real pressure. And that kind of forces CLG back to the drawing board. Like, we did hear that they did use all of their bans. The missing one was a Gwen. But ultimately, they never created pressure. The anti-pick never really found any of these big tippers. And I feel like CLG, they look at that and they're like, oh, we were not expecting the Cho'Gath and can adapt into game 2, but CLG are no strangers themselves, just draft gapping people with weird picks that people aren't expecting.
Yeah, so maybe we'll see some weird picks coming out in the future. Only time is going to tell, though. We are halfway through this best of 2. For now, we're kicking it to a break. We'll see you on the other side.